let's look at the map, because certainly the map should tell us something, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Mecca was there in the 6th and 7th century, then it should be on the maps from the 6th and 7th century. Am I correct?
Yes.
If Muhammad was born in 570, that's the 6th century, and died in 632, that's the 7th century, and moved from Mecca to Medina in 622, that's the beginning of the 7th century, then certainly someone somewhere should have known about it, and this place should be on a map. Okay, well, let's look and see. This is a facsimile. This is not a real map. This is just a facsimile of the trade routes from the 7th century. Notice all those green lines, those are the trade routes. Notice where they don't go through, where the red question mark is. That's where Mecca is today. Why is it not on the trade route? Here's another one. This is a trade route, another facsimile. This is not a true map. This is just a facsimile of trade routes in the 7th century. Notice what's missing. Mecca is not there. Now let's look at some real maps. These are real maps. This one is from the 6th century. Notice what's missing. Mecca is missing. Here is a 7th century map. Look at what's missing. Where's Mecca? Not there. Where the red question mark is where Mecca is today. Why is it not on a? This is the time of Muhammad. This is the time that Muhammad should be living. So where's Mecca there? Here's another one. Here's a 7th century map. Still, Mecca is missing. Mecca is still missing. Another one. Completely different one. These are all completely different. This is another 7th century. This is the time that Muhammad lived. This is the time you have Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. You cannot find Mecca at all. Yet they should have been living down there. Nothing. This. But let's look and see what the traditions say. The traditions talk about Mecca. Now, by the time the traditions are written down, Ibn Ishaq, forget Ibn Ishaq. He never wrote a thing that we know of. It's Ibn Hisham. That should be Ibn Hisham. Whenever you see Ibn Ishaq, that should be Ibn Hisham. That's a typo. I forgot to put Hisham's name. We're talking about this book right here. This is the book.
If you want them to see it, you can. Actually, oh, there you go. Okay. All right, so that's the book Dr. J is talking about, the life of Muhammad.
And it says here, this is a translation by Alfred Guillaume. This comes from Ibn Hisham. It does not come from Ibn Ishaq. The reason why he's written Ibn Ishaq there is because of pressure by the Muslims. The Muslims are demanding that they use the word Ibn Ishaq, because Ibn Ishaq would have written this in 765. Ibn Hisham actually wrote this in 833. That's why this is he's being politically correct. But that's a lie. That's a lie. Ibn Ishaq has nothing to do with this book. We don't know anything from Ibn Ishaq. Nothing exists from Ibn Ishaq. Nothing has been retained today from 765. Okay? That's a whole nother problem we're not going to get into right now. Now, what the traditions say, what Ibn Hisham al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, all of them say is this, that this place, now that it is called Mecca, because Mecca was well known by the mid-8th century. By 749, Mecca now was chosen. And we know that it was chosen by the Abbasids. The Abbasids are the ones that choose Mecca. And they change the location of the sanctuary from Petra and they bring it down to Mecca. So Mecca from 749 on is well known. Okay, here's Ibn Hisham. He's writing in 833. And he says that it's in a valley and it has a parallel valley. Well, you can see there are some problems here. Why would he be saying that when Mecca doesn't have a valley or in a parallel valley? He's referring to earlier traditions. So he's taken, remember, what did Ibn Hisham and what did al-Bukhari do? They were given all these traditions from earlier times, and they were to whittle them down and throw out that which was erroneous. So he threw out everything that Ibn Ishaq said and only retained what he wanted. But of course, he just wrote down what these earlier traditions said. And these earlier traditions are all talking about Petra. But they don't want the name Petra there, so they put Mecca in there without realizing that there's some historical problems here, including this one right here. Al-Bukhari then talks about that it has a stream going through it. There are no streams in Mecca. None whatsoever. According to to Surah 37, and outside the ruins, in fact, 2 different times in the Quran, it refers to the fact that the prophet goes outside, and when he goes outside, he passes the pillar of salt, referring to the pillar of salt of Lot's wife from the time of Abraham, from 1900 BC. There's no way that Lot's wife or that Lot himself could be living that far south. If there was any place that salt would have been, it would have been right outside of Petra today. What is Jordan? That it has fields, that it has trees, that this place where the prophet lived has grass, has fruit, has clay, has loam. Hold on a minute. Look at Mecca. There are no trees, grass, fruit, clay, or loam. There may be today, but they've all been transported in. Why? It's one of the most arid places on earth. There's only one well there called the Zamzam well. And no one has been able to look to see if that well is very old. I imagine it's a very new well, because almost all the water that has to be brought into Mecca has to be transformed in from the Red Sea. They had to desalinate it, and they have to then for all the pilgrims. There's no water there. There's no cisterns there. Mecca is one of the driest places on earth. Therefore, it would not have had trees, grass, fruit, clay, loam. Look at the old pictures of Mecca. Whenever you look at the pictures from the 1900s or the 1800s, look at it.
Yeah.
It is as arid a place as you could find, with no vegetation whatsoever. And then it says that according to Surah 6, in Surah 16, that there are olive trees there. There are no olive trees in Arabia. The only olive trees that can be grown are way up in the Mediterranean, which is 600 miles further north. And then it says that there have mountains overlooking the Kaaba, looking down onto the Kaaba. Look at any picture of Mecca. There are no mountains there looking down on the Kaaba. So Mecca is not in a valley. It has none of these listed above because it is just too arid and it is just too dry. Real problem. Real problem here. So Dr. Patricia Crone wanted to find out, well, then if there's no reference to Mecca anywhere, when does the reference to Mecca first appear? So she scoured all the documentations, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th century. Guess when she found her first reference to Mecca? There it is right on the screen. The Apocalypse of Pseudo-Methodius Continuato Byzantia Arabica. The date 741. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Wow.
Muhammad was supposed to have been there born there in 570, died and will live there until 622. Went back and reconquered it in 630. And yet the first reference we can find anywhere on any documentation is 741. 741, during the reign of Caliph Hisham. The earliest time we can find it on any map is not till 900 AD. That's the 10th century.
Wow.
Now, Crone in her work said that Greek trading documents refer to the towns of Taif and Yathrib, Chayb, but never to Mecca. There are no references to Mecca in any of these documents. She went back and she found documents from Ctesiphon. That is what is modern day Baghdad. And these are Greek documents. And Pahlavi documents, which means Persian documents. And here the people in Ctesiphon were sent down, these trading groups way down to Yathrib. And when they got to Yathrib, they found silver down there. So they went and started up silver mines all around Yathrib. Silver in Yathrib. And they went down, these documents talking about going down to Taif and down to Najran and going up to Tabuk and Khaybar, but no reference in any of these documents, these Persian documents, of any place called Mecca. And yet Mecca's right next door. It's just southwest of Yathrib and just northwest of Taif, down off the tribe. So you can see these are real problems. She's looking at documents from that era. Now, what's interesting, she didn't read the entire inscription. If she'd read the entire inscription from Methodius, Continuato Byzantia Arabica from 741, if she read the second half of it, it says, as they consider it, that's Mecca, as they consider it, the home of Abraham, which lies in the desert between Ur of the Chaldees and Kara, the city of Mesopotamia. Wait a minute, hold on a minute. Take a look on a map where that is. There's Ur, which is just north of Edessa, and where Abraham came from was Haran. According to the people in the 8th century, they believe Abraham came from there. We know today that's wrong, because now we've discovered Ur. That was just discovered in 1853 by G.E. Taylor, the British discoverer. He discovered the city of Ur in 1853, and that is now today in Iraq. But back in the 8th century, this is where they thought that Abraham lived. But when you look and see where that is, that's in southern Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
That's way up north, hundreds of miles further north, proving that they've got the wrong Mecca, even in that inscription. Well, not the Mecca they have the right Mecca, but that's the first Mecca. That's the earlier Mecca. That's not the Mecca that we know today, because nowhere anybody, no Muslim listening to us would believe that Mecca existed in southern Turkey. Too far north, once again, but directly above the present-day Mecca. And the original Mecca was located in southern Turkey or south of Edessa. Now, let's look at modern. Now, let's look at modern Mecca today. When you look at Mecca today, you see that huge building. I don't know if you've seen pictures. That is the 4th highest building in the world.
Yeah.
That clock tower. Okay, it's known as Abraj al-Bayt Tower. We'll just call it the al-Bayt Tower, okay? The al-Bayt Towers. And there's more than one. There's about 7 or 8 big buildings that are built all around it. They are huge hotels, air-conditioned hotels for very wealthy Muslims when they come to the Hajj. And they're looking right down onto the Kaaba there. Can you see the Kaaba? There's no mountains looking down on the Kaaba there. Yeah. Can you see any mountains looking down on it? No, but there are buildings that are like mountains today. So they're trying to recreate the very thing that the Quran talks about. It's the world's largest clock. It has 45 feet across, and it's designed the same way as Big Ben in London. There you can see a picture of Big Ben and that clock right at the bottom there. Now, this is what they want to make Mecca to look like. Take a look at that. It's all going to be cemented over. It's going to be a huge place.
Wow.
That's future. Today, this is what it looks like today. Well, this is actually about 2 years old now. What do you notice? There are cranes everywhere, right? When you build buildings, you need cranes. But take a look at what they're cementing over. The Prophet's birth home is now being cemented over and destroyed. Khadija, his wife, home has been destroyed to make places for these buildings. They're just destroying the history. They don't even care about the Prophet anymore there in Mecca. But what's most important is when you build large buildings like that, 4th highest in the world, enormously tall buildings, what's the first thing you need to do? You need to build foundations. You need to dig holes into the ground. Am I correct?
That's true. So
when you dig holes in the ground, what happens when you dig holes in any ancient city in the ground? You come across
you make discoveries. Exactly.
Discovery after discovery. And the archaeologists come to the building sites and they say, give us anything you find. And that's what you go to London, you go to Athens, you go to any ancient city, you go to even Baghdad. And whenever they build these large buildings, the archaeologists are there because the builders are doing their job for them. They're actually digging much deeper than the archaeologists can dig, and they're going back and recreating. They take the artifacts and then they recreate the history of the city. And that's exactly what they should be doing here. So Dan Gibson was at a conference in 2009 when these buildings were being built. And at the conference there in Arabia, he went to the archaeologists that were there. It was an archaeological conference. And he asked them, what have you found? You're there. What have you found? And they kind of looked sheepishly at him and they said, well, we've not found a thing. Zero. Not a thing. Oh, except they found an Ottoman fort from about 1299 AD. 1299. That's the oldest thing they could find in Mecca. The oldest thing that has now been uncovered from all this building that's going on. What does that tell you, Korede?
Something is actually wrong somewhere. I mean, like you said, if this is the city we're talking about, we should have been discovering things more ancient. In fact, we should be able to go back to the 7th century, the time of Muhammad. But if we can't find anything that has to go way back to that period, probably we're in the wrong place.
We should be able to find we should be able to find artifacts all the way back to Abraham. Don't stop there.
Yeah,
all the way back to Adam and Eve. If this is the oldest city in the world, then why aren't we finding artifacts that go all the way back to Adam and Eve? You're saying nothing of Abraham in 1900. You see, the oldest thing they can find so far is 1299 AD, not BC, AD.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
That's
Wow.
only 800 years ago. Only 800 years ago.